Well, I bet they weren't expecting this. Let's begin. You know, it still amazes me. We're in the year 2024 when you'd think, wouldn't you, that common sense would prevail. We're not on King Henry VIII's time where we believe in witches or whenever that was. But the point is, even though we are in 2024, when we've got the choice of all the streaming services out there, we're still forced to pay the BBC or TV licensing, to be more accurate, if we want to watch live TV, including if we don't actually want to watch the BBC themselves. This is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? However, that may soon be changing because, according to this article, there's been a major update on the BBC TV licence fee. So what's that? What's going on then? Well, apparently it says that the government has now even responded to a petition to get rid of the TV licence fees and turn the BBC into an optional subscription service. The response by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport acknowledged the challenges that the current model is facing, but confirmed that the licence fee will remain for this charter, which actually ends in 2027. And to be honest, they can actually get out of that even if they wanted to before 2027, because once it's locked in, then I guess, we're kind of screwed. So hopefully it won't renew next time, and something tells me it won't, because it says, however, it noted that the government has launched a review into ways to ensure the BBC future funding is fair and sustainable, which makes me question what that is. Hopefully it's not going to be some sort of tax, like some extra charge on our council tax, because then there'll be no way of getting out of it, will there? Because at the end of the day, if we don't want to watch the BBC, then we shouldn't be forced to pay them, should we? And I think they have got an absolute cheek to ask us to pay them if we want to watch live TV on other channels. It's a bit like paying Asda for the ability to shop in Tesco's, isn't it? It's just absolutely ridiculous. But as I said, the government has responded, and that could be because a petition will trigger government's response when it reaches 10,000 signatures, and at 100,000 signatures, petitions are considered for a debate in Parliament. So just how many signatures has this got over 10,000? Well, it says this petition, entitled "Abolish the TV Licence and Make the BBC a Subscription Channel," has gathered over 11,600 signatures so far. There'll be 11,601 when I have a look at it a bit later on. A statement from Marie Davies, who launched the petition, reads, "Abolish the TV licence and replace it with a subscription for those who want to watch it." And that's the key argument here, isn't it? You should only really pay for something if you want to watch it. I mean, take for example Netflix. I pay for my Netflix subscription because I want to watch it. I don't pay for a TV licence because not only do I think it sucks, but also I don't watch the BBC or any live TV at all. It's a rather outdated way of watching TV in my opinion. However, I do understand that there are still quite a lot of people who do want to watch live TV, especially if you're watching a sporting games like football or whatever. But she also argued that the TV licence is more expensive than a lot of subscriptions, and I believe she said we should have a choice as to whether we want to pay to watch it. And I personally think she's right, especially when companies like Netflix and Disney Plus have reduced their minimum plans to something like $4.99 a month. I mean, that's nearly a third of what the TV licence costs, isn't it? Per month anyway. Especially, as it was announced recently that it will go up again in April by September's 6.7% interest rate, which brings it to a shocking figure of £169.50 a year. Just to watch TV is just absolutely ridiculous, especially when, remember, these channels are on Freeview and FreeSat, so technically shouldn't they be free? Therefore you wouldn't actually need any TV licence at all. You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? But no, even in this day and age, 2024, we are still forced to pay these idiots, in my opinion, to watch live TV. It's just absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? But in a response, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport said that the number of households holding a TV licence fell by 400,000 last year, which is going to be quite a big amount for the BBC, isn't it? And it attributed this to an increasingly competitive media landscape. And the full response to the petition reads, "The government recognises that the licence fee funding model is facing challenges. In an increasing competitive media landscape, the number of households holding TV licence is declining and fell by 400,000 last year. Though the government is committed to the licence fee model for the remainder of this charter period, until 2028 apparently, or the end of 2027, these changes raise fundamental questions about the sustainability of the licence fee over the longer term," which hopefully means that they're putting the BBC on notice to get a verbal kick in the gonads with their licence fee, that it won't be lasting forever. and hopefully will be ending in 2028, because the thing is, the licence fee charter is renewed every 10 years, so if it is renewed in 2028, we're going to be stuck with the TV licence until 2038, presumably the earliest, which would just be an outrage, wouldn't it? They then go on about how wonderful the BBC is and all sort of crap like that. Personally, I don't think it is. I think it's just like any other TV channel out there, and I don't see why people keep giving it as much praise as they do, especially when every other TV channel out there gets their funding, or seems to get their funding, or a lot of their funding rather, from adverts, when the BBC just likes to expect us to pay for it, don't they? With, of course, their TV licence fee. The petition apparently is due to close on April the 25th, 2024, meaning people will just have over 2 months left to boost their chances of triggering a parliamentary debate. And remember, over 100,000 signatures will make that debate happen, and hopefully that will mean the removal of the TV licence fee will at least become a little bit more likely, especially if more and more petitions like this come up more often. Then they can't ignore it at all, can they? Well, he's done another U-turn, but just who the hell am I on about? The political belly dancer himself, Sir Keir Starmer. You can just imagine him in a tutu, can't you, doing all those twirls. This time he's U-turned, according to this article, on a pledge to spend £28 billion on green projects, which, let's face it, is just going to be an absolute nightmare for all us motorists out there, isn't it? Especially if, due to this pledge, more and more councils would no doubt be given incentives to make sure us motorists will no doubt be forced to pay a charge, similar to you, Les, when we enter that particular council's borough. You just imagine that, can't you? You can see it from way off. But anyway, the article says that the Labour boss is officially abandoning the eye-watering figure following relentless Tory attacks on how the party will pay from it without hiking taxes, and in general that does seem to be how Labour do pay for things, doesn't it? So it's no surprise why they would presumably do this time, eh? It comes apparently after weeks of chaos over the plan since the Sun first revealed the intention to drop the £28 billion figure last month. And the confusion saw Sir Keir Starmer, he said Kermit the Frog then, commit to the pledge just this week after Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves refused 10 times to do the same, sparking speculation of a split. And only yesterday, apparently, Labour ministers and spokespeople insisted the Green Prosperity Plan remained their policy. But after all that, of course, this afternoon Sir Keir and Miss Reeves will together junk the £28 billion figure in a bid to draw a line under the carnage. Well, even though they are getting rid of this pledge, I cannot see Labour dropping any green eco pledges at all. I mean, you got the London Mayor, haven't you, Sadiq Khan, pushing out ULEZ to more and more boroughs. But at the end of the day, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, the last thing the public needs is more and more taxes, isn't it? No matter how much of their green agenda they want to allocate it to. And yes, of course, you know, while they do tend to say it's very nice to do things for the environment, we don't want it rammed down our face, especially, of course, if we have to pay through the nose for it with tax rises or whatever else. I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally think cutting the 5% VAT rate on our electric bills would be quite a nice saving for us people. But of course, I can't see that happening because, from what I'm aware, that is a green tax, isn't it? An eco-fuel tax or whatever you want to call it. Environmental tax or something like that. It even says here, look, the mission to reach clean power by 2030 will remain. So it doesn't mean that this will still happen, but they're just, I don't know, moving the goalpost or applying sleight of hand or whatever you want to call it to roll it out more slowly so we, I guess, won't notice, and that, I'm sure, would be their plan. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm no Mystic Meg, but I just think what we could actually do with that £28 billion. I mean, for starters, we could surely clear the fiscal drag that we're all paying and increase the tax allowance, therefore we're not paying as much tax on our wages. I mean, that surely would be much better than paying for something on their green agenda, which I'm guessing a lot of people may not want to do. Because let's face it, remember, us in the world, we're a small country, aren't we? So even if we had everything green, how much difference is that going to make to the planet as a whole? Not much, I'm guessing. But of course, the Tories, as you'd expect, have jumped on this. Today, Tory MPs accused the party leader of another flip-flop, which has become a regular attack line. Well, that's because he keeps doing them, isn't it? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm worried that if he then becomes Prime Minister, which unfortunately it looks like quite likely to happen, what he's going to flip-flop about once he's in. I mean, is he going to say, yes, don't worry, Brexit will be fine, and then attempt to get us even more closer to the EU than what we are at the minute? I mean, Unfortunately, I think that's a dead cert if he becomes Prime Minister, but hopefully I am wrong, although something tells me I'm not. Laura Trott, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, said, "This is a serious moment which confirms Labour have no plan for the UK, creating uncertainty for business and our economy. And on the day that Labour are finishing their manifesto, Sir Keir Starmer is torpedoing what he has claimed is a central economic policy purely for short-term campaigning reasons." Even also, Labour MPs have put the boot in on the U-turn, with Barry Gardiner calling it economically illiterate. Although, to be honest, I do think it's funny that even Labour MPs are putting the boot in on this, because surely, if anything, that presumably means that they don't actually want him to be Prime Minister himself. Although, admittedly, that is quite a long shot. Apparently, a senior source said, "We are going to drop that figure, £28 billion, altogether. We'll keep the promise to turn Britain into a clean energy superpower, but that £28 billion has just become an albatross around our neck." Well, yeah, there is loads of stuff that we can actually do with that, isn't there? Rather than, of course, just flush it down the toilet, in my opinion. Which, let's face it, this will more than likely do. Especially, of course, if he caves in to all the eco-idiots out there with their protests, he will demand this, that and whatever else.